Hi, this is Doug with etched Engineering, and today I want to show you my copper water bottle with my own Capstan modification for the top. This is what the copper water bottle looked like when I originally purchased it. So you can see it's nice and shiny and does not have the Capstan modification to it. So you can see over time it's tarnished a bit, and I've added this Capstan for reasons which I will get into. Capstan, if you're not familiar, is a nautical term. It's a vertical axled simple machine, leveraged machine for raising and lowering anchors and hauling loads and stuff like that. So before I actually get into the modification that I made, I wanted to go over the reasons for even buying and using a copper water bottle in the first place, because it's like kind of strange for most people. So for one reason, it's naturally antimicrobial. Anecdotally, this bottle has never had a funky, mildewy, bacteria, slimy kind of smell to it ever. You basically don't have to wash it other than rinsing it out with water. So that's one good benefit. It gives water, especially if you keep it in the fridge for like an hour or two, it gives water this great, clean, crisp, cool taste compared to other kind of vessels you could use. Dare I say, it gives it a mouthfeel, a nice mouthfeel, if I can be presumptuous. Copper also has a long history of use, going back thousands of years in many different cultures and civilizations. So you know that it's also in our civilization. I mean, we use copper pipes, right, for most households and buildings and everything. So most of the water we drink is touching copper. So you know it's not at least bad for you, right? It might not be good for you, but or if it is bad for you, well, everyone's in the same boat. So it has that advantage. This is compared to modern stainless steels, plastics, even glass is getting a little weird now with the ingredients they use. So it's just not as guaranteed when you're using those other materials for water bottles. Who knows? You know, I'm not saying like one is good and bad, but copper seems to be like the safest material you could use. Copper also raises the pH of the water. So you know, it makes it more alkaline. This is kind of like a health craze thing if you're into that. Yeah, there's a benefit for you. A lot, like if you go to the store, you can buy, like they have alkaline water that's like 8 or 9 pH. I mean, you should see the prices on some of this. Whereas you can get that level naturally with this bottle if you keep the water in there for a few hours. Another cool advantage to this bottle, it kind of has its own personality. Like, as I said, this is what it looks like brand new, and this is what it looks like now. So it's gone through, this is over, I've had this for about half a year now. So it's gone through all kinds of different color changes based on the weather, the humidity in the air, the temperature of the water. It's like, it turns like has a greenish tint sometimes. It gets these little water etchings, like water drops in it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of stabilized now into the traditional reddish brown copper color, but you can clean it too very easily. You can just use a lemon solution. I think there's another way to do it too, where you can bring it back to that original shine if you want to. Another advantage is yeah, well, you get to be just a cool hipster like me with a cool water bottle that everyone wants to talk about. Yeah, so those are the benefits. There are a lot of disadvantages to a copper water bottle. One is, well, I said you got a lot of, I get a lot of comments on it. Well, that could be a bad part too. This thing kind of sticks out in a crowd. And I'm not like walking around like showing this off like Mr. Bean. I don't want to necessarily talk about it. I just want to use it. But, you know, obviously it's something that people are going to remark on, especially with this little Capstan thing here. So that's a bad part. That's one bad part. Another bad part, the whole reason I added this Capstan, still going to get into that, is that this thing is very hard to screw on to a watertight so that it's watertight, so water doesn't drip out of it. If it's like in your bag sideways or something like that, very hard to almost impossible, I would say. You're gonna, unless you have a death grip on this thing, there's gonna be a little like drip, drip, drip of water. And another thing that I addressed with my modification here is there's no way to carry it like this, which is kind of a bummer. Like you certainly miss that with if compared to other popular water bottles. There's also if you hear that sound, there's a kind of a harsh squeaking sound when you open and close it. I'm still trying to solve that one. Sometimes it's louder than others. Sometimes it doesn't happen, so it leads me to believe that there's a reproducible way to make it not squeak, but I just haven't honed in on that way yet. The other thing is this bottle, like I mentioned, it changes color over time. That's due to oxidation, and that could be a bad thing for some people. Like if you wanted to maintain that original shine, you would have to do some work. Like, I don't know, probably once a month you'd have to do like a lemon wash. So that could be a bad part. Another bad disadvantage is it sometimes has a metallic smell, especially when you're drinking right out of the bottle. Kind of think like a penny in your hand, like that kind of smell. And sometimes it can also your hand can get that smell. Again, I don't know under what circumstances. I think when your hands are like kind of dirty and grimy and oily and disgusting, and it seems to really pick up that coppery smell, and it's hard to get off. But I've noticed that reducing over time as the bottle has oxidized and stabilized at this color. So it's not so much of a concern now, but I think if I cleaned it so to the point where it could start oxidizing more readily again, then it would, that coppery smell would be an issue again. If you pour it into a glass, like from this water bottle, you can't taste it at all. It's just the cool, clean, crisp mountain water taste. Another disadvantage, it is somewhat costly. I paid $35 for this bottle, whereas for a very nice stainless steel or glass water bottle, you're looking more around like $20. The link is in the description, by the way, if you want to check that out. And finally, the last disadvantage is it's very easy to dent. This has a few just cosmetic dents into it, no big deal, but that's something to be aware of. Easier to dent than steel, but on the other hand, at least it dents. With a glass water bottle, if you're using, or a plastic, it might fall and crack, and you have to buy a new one completely. And the dents, conceivably, you could ping them out again a little more easier than stainless steel, if you wanted to. I don't really care, but so. Onto the Capstan modification that I made. Is pretty cool looking, right? So for one, this Capstan, as I mentioned, its purpose is to give you greater leverage when you're closing the top of the bottle, so that you don't get that water dripping out like I mentioned. So an ideal grip here, you kind of, to close it, you put your fingers against your chest like this, and then you kind of like get your elbows as close together as possible, and then you just push it into your chest. And it's tricky. I think I would have to kind of, yeah, you can see from the side angle here. Yeah, I kind of have to show it in person, but there is, even with this Capstan, there's still kind of a technique you have to use to get the maximum leverage. And one side of the Capstan is longer than the other, so that your four fingers go there and your thumb goes on the shorter side. So yeah, this is closed nice and tight, and then the opposite, you switch hands to open it. You press your right hand into your chest, and it opens right up. Now to drill this through, I had to drill a hole through the top of the copper top, so you know, this is went right through the top. It's not a breach of anything like critical, so it's not going to cause a leak or anything. It doesn't have to be, the hole itself doesn't have to be watertight. So first, to do this, I drilled a test. I did a test drill through just a piece of copper pipe I had, just to make sure. You always want to do this because I don't want to mess up this top that cost this whole thing that cost me $35 on a whim. I want to at least make sure that your unknowns are handled. So do a test. I did a test drill through this. Everything went fine with my drill press. So I'm going to put up a video clip over here of the actual drilling process, so you can see first that I'm I have everything clamped down and I'm just centering the top exactly where I want it. You don't want to be holding this in your hand or anything, obviously. Yeah, and then I just start with the actual drilling, and it went pretty smooth. One mistake I made is that when I clamped it in place, I kind of dented in the top. So the top used to be domed. Now it's concave. So it used to be convex, now it's concave. And also that you can see that the drill bit kind of brushed against the newly concave top there, and you know, that's kind of a mistake I made. So if I did this again, I would make sure to clamp it in such a way that the domed top is preserved, and so the drill bit doesn't interfere, and also so moisture doesn't collect in there, and because over time, over like a few decades, then the water would start oxidizing, like eating through the top there. A bit of an irony with this whole thing is that now that I've had this capstan through the top, I've kind of greased the groove, so the capstan is less necessary. Like, I've kind of wrenched it in there, wrenched it in and out enough times that I've kind of smoothed the pathway for the top. So I might not even need the capstan anymore, but the capstan does give this nice anchoring for this carrier, which I made out of just paracord and just with a double slip knot on each side. Yeah, so. Now, I first used another detail to this is I first used oak dowel for the capstan, but look what happened. I applied so much leverage one time, I was torquing it so much that the oak actually snapped. Now, oak also peels, so you can see as I was to get this dowel in, the oak kind of peeled off, and here's another dowel I tried to get in there, if we can see that. Yeah, so oak has a tendency to peel, or any wood really, whereas this bamboo that I'm using has a tendency to compress instead, and also wedges in there nicely because the knuckle of the bamboo has a wider diameter than the length between the knuckles. So you can kind of wedge the bamboo in there, and it also withstands the torque a lot better than just plain wood. So like, you can try to break this bamboo with your hands, it's not going to happen. Whereas the dowel, you could, if you're strong enough, you could snap it, which I did. You could snap it with your hands. So yeah, bamboo, ideal material for the actual capstan. You would think that you could use a metal dowel, like steel or aluminum or titanium or something, but this will probably cause some kind of corrosion. Whenever you have different metals in contact with each other, they have different potential energies. This causes galvanic corrosion, and I think that depending on what metal you used, either the metal dowel or the copper would corrode and just weaken the whole system. So don't use metal. Now, after all of this fuss, I was thinking, what would be a better top for this bottle in the first place is this kind of design here, where you have a flap This is a classic jar kind of top, right? This would get rid of the whole need for a screw top in the first place, and then you could just have that flap on there. Okay, so that's about it. If you've watched this far, thank you very much. I know it's kind of a weird video, but honestly, this is I've been using this for half a year, and I'm very happy with it now that I've made my modification. So let me know if you get into it and purchase one. Let me know how you like it. Otherwise, please like, share, comment, subscribe in reverse order, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.